This meeting of March 15th, 2022 to order. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the municipal building on December 22nd, 2021, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared in the Daily Record on December 28th, 2021, and the Newark Star Ledger on December 27th, 2021. Council meetings are videotaped and aired on Public Access Channel 21 at 7 p.m. Sundays and Wednesdays, and are also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net. Would you all join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Karifi? Here. Ms. Grignani?
Here.
Mr. Musella? Here. Mr. Neglia?
Here.
Mr. DePiero?
Here.
Also in attendance are Mayor Jamie Barbario, CFO Juan Uribe, Township Attorney Michael Lavery, and Township Clerk Colette Madden. Council President, we have a quorum. You may begin.
Thank you. Upcoming meetings, April 5th, 2022 at 7 p.m. agenda meeting, and April 19th, 2022 at 7 p.m. our regular meeting. Approval of minutes, regular meeting 10/19/21, agenda meeting 12/7/21, regular meeting 12/21/22.
Supposed to say 21, correction for the record.
21. Someone make a motion?
Motion. Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Neglia, seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call, Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, presentations and reports. Mayor, you're up first.
Yes, thank you, Council President. I'm going to start with my report with the trap, neuter, and release ordinance amendment. I've met with the health officer last week, and I spoke with you last night. I'm going to set up another committee meeting with regards to the trap, neuter, and release, and possibly amending the ordinance, not getting rid of it, but amending it that where it works out, not just for the caretaker, but for the residents and the public safety of our residents. The no golf utility catering, that bid went out. It's going to be opened up on March 23rd. The PBA local contract 131, I had discussions today with the labor attorney. We're going to start the negotiations. Princess Street, I'm not going to really speak on that tonight because we have our engineer here that will be discussing the report that was put out. Also, and this is important, I think it's very important to discuss this one matter, the police department. Right now, the police department is down to 83 deployable police officers. That is extremely low. My first time when I was the mayor, we brought it back up to 106 police officers. Should be, according to ordinance, 113. This is dangerously low, and I blame the former chief, Andy Miller, who has failed as a chief because he never filled those positions. I know that he had a hiring freeze, but was in with the last year. You know, this affects our crime unit, this affects our traffic unit, this affects a lot of things in the township. And instead of sitting there writing letters to the editor, the chief should have been a chief and he should have been running the police department. With that being said, this is going to be something, an albatross for the township council, as well as myself, to beef it back up to where it needs to be. Public safety is paramount, especially in Parsippany. In any town, it's paramount. So I'm going to work very hard, and I'm going to ask the council for your support to bring it back to where it needs to be, so the men and women can run this town properly. Arbor Day is April 29th, and I'll give you guys the details on that. And last, I'm not going to get into it because I know you have I'm going to just explain to you something that's true to all of our hearts up here today. On April 2nd, I spoke to the council president last night. We're going to do a flag raising of the Ukrainian flag against Putin's Russian invasion. And it's a shame when you really think about it. The country like Ukraine, one day was a democracy, and then the next day, it's being bombed. And I have to tell you something, if we stand for anything, this country, this town, we stand for freedom. And freedom throughout, not just Township of Parsippany, the United States, but around the world. And I think that's something, that we should, bring out. Also, I spoke with the committeeman from Hanover Township, Ace Gallagher. So we're gonna start doing food drives, cold drives, and we're gonna speak to the PAL, Recreation Director. We're gonna store most of the food there, and then we're gonna go down to he has contact with the Ukrainian church, and we're gonna bring all the food and everything like that, and coordinate with the Ukrainian church as well. Those here that are here tonight, my heart goes out to those in Ukraine and Ukrainian Americans as well. I pray, and we all pray here, that there's resolve and that, somehow God's hand comes in this to stop what's going on. So that's my report, Council President.
Thank you. Also, under presentations and reports, the Township Council has a resolution that we'd like to read and present to the delegation that's here from Ukrainian. And our state legislators have one too. We'll go first since it's our party, and then we'll call them up. Resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills supporting the Ukraine and its people against Putin's Russian invasion. Whereas, like much of the world, Parsippany residents have been deeply moved by recent events in Ukraine. Russia began a full-scale invasion of Ukraine on February 24th, 2022, in an escalation of the Russia-Ukraine war that began in 2014. The invasion is the largest conventional military attack on a sovereign state in Europe since World War II. And whereas this is a humanitarian crisis against the Ukrainian people, Putin's army is brutally bombing civilian targets as well as military targets. The Ukrainian people are fighting valiantly against superior forces in an attempt to save their country. And whereas the world watches in horror as over 2 million refugees, I guess it's now 3 million. When I wrote this, it was 2 million, have been forced to flee Ukraine. The International Red Cross is on the ground in Poland, supporting displaced children and families with vital support, but that is not enough. And whereas the mixed messages coming from Washington and the United Nations is not helping, we need to be doing more. We agree with Nikki Haley. The U.S. needs to take a position of strength and deterrence in support of Ukraine. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills that the Township obtain a Ukrainian flag which will be flown at Town Hall in support of the Ukrainian people. We pray for the victims of this brutal and unnecessary war. That's signed by myself and our council members.
Thank you, Council President.
If we could just go up and take a picture with some of the delegation at the microphone, I'll make this presentation. And then we will call up our state legislators to do the same. We're down for a picture.
Have everybody step up to the podium.
Mayor?
That's what it means.
Council President, where would you prefer that we do this?
In front, we'll move the
Over the
microphone.
microphone? You want to move the table back? Yeah, I'm going to move it back. Well, that's Why don't we have the young ladies and gentlemen in the front, adults in the back, height, I think, probably best.
I did the second one.
Why don't we have the father, you in the front to accept the proclamation for the resolution ready? Yeah. Maybe in the front here next to the father. Ladies. I'll sneak on the other side there. Gene, we'll have every once in a while, I'm going to stand over here in the middle.
Exactly. That's right.
We'll look through the lens. Would it make sense if we stood up here and just waited for the state legislature? Yeah. Senator or something?
Michael.
Ladies and gentlemen, brief introductions to Senator Joe Panaccio from New Jersey's 26th District, and Assemblyman Brian Bergen, soon to be from New Jersey's 26th District, currently from the 25th. I apologize, I didn't mean to. Yeah, maybe for father.
Yeah, right, that's fine. First, thank you to Council President DePiero for extending the invitation, as well as Mayor Jamie Barbario and the entire council. Thank you all. This is important. It's important that we are here. We know that evil has blanketed the Ukraine. We see it. Big bad Russia, outnumbering the Ukrainians by 10 to 1 in military strength, has still chosen to bomb innocent men, women, and children. Has chosen to bomb women with their children still in their wombs in maternity hospitals. When all seems lost, and you would know this, Father, we all turn to faith. We turn to faith because it comforts us, but it also gives us hope. Judeo-Christian history is replete with instances where the mighty have fallen to the good and the righteousness. You remember Moses sent 12 spies into, of course, the Jordan, and only 2 came back. The other 10 said, we can't go there. They're too big. They're too many. We're not going to be able to survive. Caleb and Joshua, they were right. They said, no, with the fact that we have righteousness and goodness on our side as well as God, we will be able to survive, and they won. King David, he was a shepherd. He played the harp, not exactly an Arnold Schwarzenegger type. Even his own family couldn't believe that he was going to be the anointed one. Yet when they needed somebody to fight Goliath, all 11 feet of him, it was David that answered the call. He's the one that volunteered. For some Christians in this room, if you fast forward to the 19th century, in 1917, we all know about Our Lady of Fatima. But 3 years before that, there was an apparition in the Ukraine. And she had said, the Blessed Mother had said that you're going to be subjugated for 80 years. But after 80 years, you're going to be an independent nation. She didn't say then you're going to be subjugated again, and you will not. For all that think that this is just religious myth and fables, let's secularize it. Abraham Lincoln said that right beats might. Look no further than America. We, a ragtag group of Minutemen and peasants, managed to fend off and beat the largest army and navy in the world at that time, Great Britain. As a matter of fact, if you fast forward to the 20th century, it was Great Britain that was surrounded by the Nazis, all by themselves, and yet they managed to persevere. But perhaps the biggest example of right beating might is that little tiny speck in the desert called Israel. Since its reinception back in 1948, they have constantly been at wars, 3 major wars, and they're continually fighting battles. Not only have they succeeded, but they've also managed to flourish. Tonight we're here with you to join with you, Father, as part of that flicker, that flame of truth, of justice, of righteousness. the darkest of evils, darkest of nights can never, and you know this, overcome and overpower the light. Tonight, hopefully, joining together with millions of people across the world, we want to turn that flicker into a roaring flame. Tonight, Father, we are all Ukrainians. So we have a proclamation from here from the state, and I'll have Assemblyman Bergen present it to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to, very briefly, and thank you, Council President and the council for allowing us to come. And thank you, Senator Panaccio, for always eloquent words. I have seen the horrors of war firsthand, and I know what's going on over in Ukraine, and my heart bleeds for them. And I'm here for you and all the members of your community. And thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
There you go. That's a proclamation from the state for you, Father. And anything that we can do for any of you, please let us know. We're here for you. Thank you. Thank you, Father. Thank you for the opportunity, everybody.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, big man.
Sure, please do.
Our Ukrainian community is honored to be invited to your meeting of township and be honored with not only good words of support, but mostly with your feeling prayers and being for us at that moment. There are no words to describe tragedy and pain and suffering that Ukraine goes through, our own people. And it's not just only Ukrainians that suffer. The whole just world people feel it in their hearts. And therefore, our thoughts and prayers are mostly now with those who gave up their lives fighting against this unjust, evil aggression of Russia. And I'd like everyone to stand and honor those who lost their lives in fighting for freedom and democracy in Ukraine for a moment of silence. May the Lord God accept them in a better place of life, a place where there is freedom, there is peace, there is tranquility and love of God. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Okay, getting back to the agenda. If you want to sneak out, you'll be forgiven. If you want to sit here through our meeting, you're welcome to do that too.
Yes, you could leave.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, don't forget, we're gonna put the flag up April 2nd.
They will remind me.
Yes.
Okay.
Just really quick, we have a flag that we can give the mayor today,
Yeah, that would-
the housekeeping.
Yeah,
That would be great.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
very good.
Thank you.
Mayor, do you happen to know what time that'll be, or would that still be
It'll
announced?
be 10 in the morning, 10 in
10
the
a.m.?
morning.
Yeah, okay, excellent.
Thank
We
you.
look forward to that.
Yep.
Thank you again very much for your support.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on with the agenda. We're up to Township Attorney.
No report, Council President.
Okay. Business Administrator is not here. Township Clerk,
No report at this time, Council President, thank you.
Township Officers and Committees,
Not at this time.
and correspondence. Well, we do have one correspondence, the letter regarding Princess Street. I was receiving emails and letters from residents in the Hills of Troy neighborhood objecting to a suggestion that they make Princess Street a one-way in. I had no idea where this was coming from. The council was not involved in any discussions regarding it. And so I was, kind of flabbergasted that, who's doing this? I didn't know. Then I came upon this letter, which was written by Warren Singer, the president of the, Hills of Troy neighborhood. And he states in there, former Mayor Michael Soriano, had a study that was done before any remediation could occur. Mayor Soriano then authorized Parsippany Chief Engineer Justin Leza to hire Brightview Consultants to perform a study of the area. That's the first I've seen of where a proposal was coming for a one-way street. So we invited, our township engineer Justin to come tonight, since none of us had seen that study. We just received it recently.
We didn't know that.
We didn't know about it. And Justin, if you just come up and just a quick overview of that study.
Thank you, Council President and council members. A study was done last year by Brightview Engineering. They are traffic consultants primarily. They looked at the intersection. We asked them to look at all different options to try to solve the sight distance issue. Anyone
The
knows?
complaint from the neighborhood was that, when they come out on that street, they can't see clearly in both directions.
Both directions, primarily to the left.
Right.
Actually, to the right, there is sufficient sight distance. It's predominantly to the left, looking that way, but it affects your right and left turn movements coming out of that intersection.
Okay.
So, they came back and analyzed, 5 different options, or technically 4 options were in the report. The 5th option was a traffic signal. That was quickly dismissed because it just didn't meet the warrant criteria for a traffic signal based on traffic volumes, accident data. It didn't fit into that category. So they looked at 4 other options that potentially could rectify the situation there. 2 of them were found to be not compliant. They don't meet the AASHTO standards for proper sight distance. One of them was prohibiting just left turns coming out of Princess Street. So you would only be able to make a right turn. The problem is you still had a sight distance issue to the left. Even though you were making a right-hand turn, it was problematic and it didn't meet the criteria. The other one was modifying the stripes and the lane configuration on Littleton to push the traffic further away from the curb line, and hopefully that would provide more sight distance as you're looking to the left. But even with some minor modifications to the striping, it still wasn't getting the proper sight distance that was required, and it wouldn't have satisfied or met that AASHTO standard either. So the last 2 options that were on the table, one was, as you had said, making Princess Street a one-way. So it would be only a one-way going into the development, not coming out, and thus that solves the sight distance issue because no one would be exiting there. The other one was eliminating the obstruction. Anyone who's been at that intersection, when you look to the left, the largest obstruction is the grade. There's a property that fronts on Littleton Road right at the intersection, and the front yard is very high. And then as you get closer to Littleton, it drops off pretty abruptly. But because of the topography of their lawn, their front yard, that's what the largest obstruction is. So what the recommendation would be in order to solve that is we would have to get an easement from the property owner. We would have to cut into the slope about 15 to 20 feet and then erect a retaining wall in order to provide enough clear distance in front of that wall to be able to see the vehicles. So the report just summarized all the different options. Again, really 2 of them are the only ones that would meet the actual requirements. But I don't know if that solves what the council members and the community would like to see, with one of them being a one-way. We did put in a capital request for this year to fund improvements to this intersection in the amount of $120,000, which is right now just a guesstimate. Yeah, we put it in last year. Of course, construction costs are climbing like crazy, along with the asphalt and other material costs. And we have a projection on what it would cost for an easement, but we have not even entered into any kind of negotiations or even met with the property owner at this time. But those are the options that are on the table. Again, we are looking to see if we can get some funding this year for it possibly. But other than that, there's not much that can be done in the meantime to correct the situation unless we just stop all traffic from coming out of there temporarily, which again is not
No,
something
that's
we
not.
may want to do.
No.
Just, a point of reference, when they did the traffic study, they also did traffic counts. Now, we have to factor the COVID influence, which happens now because traffic volumes are lower. But what they did find is in the morning AM rush, which is the heaviest peak volume that they found between 7:15 and 8:15 in the morning, there were 9 vehicles that went through that intersection. 6 left, 1 through to the business across the street, and 2 right-hand turns. When you factor in, and they did this analysis with a factor for if COVID wasn't in play, that would actually bump up to 12 vehicles that exit there. So there's not a huge volume of traffic that uses that intersection, and mostly because I think it's the geometry of that whole development. Princess Street isn't really a easy cut through for anyone. It doesn't connect to the neighboring streets very easily. It's very circuitous where you have to make several turns to get through that development. And I think what you're seeing is, and it's probably indicative of what the traffic bump shows, it's all residential, local traffic that's using that. So they're, at least from a safety standpoint, they're well aware of the concerns there. It's not like you're just getting some random people going through that may not be familiar with that, that kind of traffic
Okay.
issue.
We can rule out the one-way in right now. I don't think anybody in the council is interested in a one-way in. And I don't think we could budget for it this year.
Well, that's a good point, Council President. Last year, as you know, the capital budget for engineering and roads should have been about 6.2, maybe to $7 million. Well, money was diverted from those, from the engineers' capital, from library to to sewer. And I think if I'm wrong, you can tell me, Juan, because this is what I've noticed. Sewer to water, that the capital budget for engineering road structures went from 6.2 million down to 1.5 million. So now it's really virtually impossible for the engineer to really,
So we have a backlog.
yeah, so,
We're
yeah,
not
right.
doing it this year.
I think if you-
So, your other option though, as an interest, the restriping to push the traffic further out, to give better visibility, can we pursue that option?
We spoke to the county, Littleton's a county road.
Right.
We actually sent the report over to the county. We wanted to get their feedback. They concurred with all of the recommendations in the report. As far as the restriping, they just said they wouldn't recommend doing restriping only because it doesn't solve the problem. They don't have a problem doing it in conjunction with the wall.
It lessens the problem.
It lessens, but it
It's a
doesn't
little-
solve it.
It's a little more safely for them to come out of that.
It could be, it could be, that was just a recommendation, and it's something we could pursue further. But I'm just reporting back on what their correspondence was.
Because we can't get I doubt that we'll have that in the budget this year to do the proper site. Possibly next year, but certainly not this year, I don't think.
Well, that doesn't mean it can't be done this year. And if I'm incorrect, let me know, Justin. Fact is that the council has to approve a capital budget that exceeds last year's capital budget, with 1.5 million. If we can get it up to, I think it's 7.2 million,
Yes.
$7.2 million, if we can get that capital bonding approved for that, this portion is in that budget, in our budget for 2022. It's just, we just don't know where we are with the figures right now. once we have a better, financial, overview, then, we could, say, listen, it can be done this year.
All right, then we'll hold off on a decision until we do the budget.
May I ask, you mentioned the capital budget for engineering was at 6 to 7 million.
But last year,
Okay, and it went down to 1.5.
1.5.
Could you elaborate as to where that money went to, or?
Well, I know some of it went to if I'm incorrect, it went to the library for the matching grant. It went to other departments as well, to make sure we had the budget, a budget that could be approved from last year. I mean, I wasn't the mayor then, but I was at the meetings, and those are the assumptions I'm making. If I'm incorrect, the CFO can, feel free to correct me.
Yes, sir. There was a redistribution of the capital monies allocated, and of course, the library took $3 million, which was to match a grant that we received from the state. And there were 3 other departments which received some of those allocations.
Okay. All right, so then, we'll wait till we do the budget
All right, okay.
and make the decision then. But the one-way is out.
Oh,
Okay.
and I'll, speak to the county again about the striping, as an
Okay.
interim measure.
And also-
Can I also add, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I did speak with Commissioner Cabana, and he expressed that whatever they could do to help us with this issue that ties into a county perspective, they're happy to do it. So I know they've been very helpful. One question, do you know how much this study cost us?
Not off the top of my head, I can get you those numbers, though.
CFO one, do we have any idea what this study cost the township last year? Because, as Mr. DePiero said, we knew nothing about this study being done.
I was not aware of this project, ma'am.
You
So-
weren't aware of it either.
No,
I
ma'am.
don't know if, were you even here at that time?
First time I hear about it.
Right.
What does a study of this size usually cost?
It's probably several $1,000s. Again, I don't want to,
No, we'll hold it.
speculate, but, you're not talking tens of thousands. You're probably, 2 to 5,000 if I had to guess.
But it still would have been nice if we had known about it
Yeah,
and
that was,
given an opinion about it.
that's the former
Okay.
mayor.
Yeah, well, I realize
Should have
that's
worked
the
with
former-
us on
yes.
that.
Former mayor didn't work with us with anything, so,
Okay. Thank you, Justin.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Justin.
Okay, moving on. Bids taken. February 2nd, 2021, pump station number 4, gravity conversion project. February 3rd, 2022, traffic signal maintenance for Littleton Road and Rita Drive, Beechwood Road, and Jefferson Road, and Smith Road. Item number 3, February 10th, 2022, rental of heavy equipment. Item 4, March 10th, 2022, Route 46 Water Main Rehabilitation Phase 1. Bids to be taken. March 23rd, 2022, operation of catering, banquet, restaurant, and tea house facilities, and provision of related services at the Knoll Country Club. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to open the meeting to the public.
Make a motion. Okay, so Mr. Karifi made the motion. Who seconded? Mr. Musella seconded the motion. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Okay, the floor is open to the public on any matter.
Come forward, sign in, state your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Ken Dalsky, 21 Winfield Drive. I just want to thank you very much for putting the Drew Forest resolution on the agenda tonight, and...
I hope it
secondly-
helps.
I hope so. I'm not directly involved in understanding exactly what the pull and push and everything, and what the forces at work are here, but I will make sure that they understand that you did it, and we'll see what happens. So, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Next?
Nicholas Homiak, Lake Hiawatha. I'd like to know whether the town wrote a letter, put it in writing to the Optimum Company about their contractors and the disrespect throwing their waste all over the town. You said that you were gonna contact them, but in my opinion, it should be in writing and it should have been exposed in the media. So we're talking about getting police officers, more police officers? Are they gonna ride around the town and ignore certain laws and only enforce ones that they feel like? I wanna know also if we can strengthen the clean community, to make a long story short, ordinances to have some of these, the economic committee and all, like what I mentioned. I don't see any excuse why they can't keep their premises respectful. And besides the street cleaner once a week, which is totally inadequate, they need some more. Do you want to have a police officer? Have a guy walking around sweeping up and giving the power to enforce the ordinances, because that's should be a duty of the police department also. Because all the litter taxes and everything, they don't even come close. I made a set of 5 photographs that I want to give to the council. What happens when you don't clean the street, stormwater runoff, and some of these products we have here. I remember the big debate that went on about the marijuana. And I heard even Mayor Barbario said, tax ratables, that's the way to do it. Really? Well, look at all the empty buildings we have around here, but because of the moral stance against the marijuana, went back and forth, and when you look at the ordinance, the 8-page ordinance, it looks like an ordinance to construct a prison compound. But at the same time, we allowed them airport liquor bottles, and I got more pictures of them. If you can get so worked up over marijuana, when 78% of the people in New Jersey wanted to make it available, you should get worked up over the vape products and the airport liquor bottles. Drink, drive, litter, pollute, and promote degeneracy. That's what those products do. And anytime you guys want to walk around the town, get out of your car, take a look, open your eyes, and you'll see them all over the place. The little aluminum caps. We should be able to get an ordinance, set an example. We don't want that kind of product. We don't want it in our town. The same you did to the marijuana. You can get it in a big bottle. We didn't need it. Those things were made specifically for the airport. But then the free market got too free. Whatever the market will bear. Well, how about whatever nature can bear, what community can bear, or it's forced to tolerate? So if we had the uppity up to get so our feathers ruffled about the marijuana, let's get our feathers up about the airport bottle and vape products. Oh, they're great. They're 1,000 times worse than cigarette butts. They're all over the place. Wires, little plastic things. It's disgusting. It's degenerate. And they don't do anything for your mind or your health. So I'm gonna leave you with some pictures. This is what happens in here. Stormwater runoff, plastic going down the sewer. And we need to improve our sewers. A lot of these entrances are too wide. We got them along the Rockaway River. I know the Green Team is doing something. But
Nick, you have about 30 seconds.
All right, I started talking to Mayor Soriano about this and everything, but it's, when we fix the street, we'll get a new sewer thing. There should be a better way to go about that. But without street cleaning and without improving the sewers, And not for anything, I remember when Soriano was mayor, we had a lot of problems with our water infrastructure. So I think that money, some of that money, it had to go for the water infrastructure. So what would you rather have, a street or turn on a faucet and have your water? So I'll leave it at that, and I made one for each of you.
Thank you.
America the Beautiful, right here.
Okay,
Thank you, Nick.
thank you, Nick. Anyone else wish to speak?
Figured I'd get in trouble if I brought an apple.
I got one for,
Thank-
Craig Clark.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'll give it to him.
These pictures of Lake Hiawatha or other areas. Can I ask him that question?
Yeah, right after Dan.
So before I attend to my presentation, I just wanted you to know that I felt a little invigorated when I heard that you were opposed to the one-way, because the one-way at Littleton, at Princess,
Warren, give your name and address first for the record.
Warren Singer, 23 Homer Street, President of the Hills of Troy Neighborhood Association.
Thank you.
You got it. So I was invigorated. I was pleased to hear that you were opposed to it, because it would be an expedient, and it would create adverse problems for other residents at Noble Street. So, but that is no longer an issue. I am correct in that statement. With regard to the study, the county also did a study. Justin is aware of that. And that study actually coincided with the study that was done by Brightview. So there is multiple information about that situation of line of sight. With regard to the restripping and maybe reconfiguration of Littleton Road to ameliorate some of the traffic congestion, that's up to the county. I'm concerned about the municipal expenditure. I have been in touch with some engineers, and I was told that if they were to attend to the property at 320 Littleton Road, and by the way, the owner is amenable to any of the easement requirements. I've spoken with her twice. A sidewalk would have to be put in. That's along the right-of-way. Shouldn't that be the county's responsibility? Why would we have to bear that cost? As a matter of fact, as a suggestion to you, that if in fact something is done there, shouldn't there be a partnership between the county and the township? So let them bear the cost for the sidewalk, and maybe 50-50 on the excavation. It's just my opinion.
That's worth looking into.
Yeah. So somebody has a homework assignment. So some of this is going to be redundant based on the letter that you had heard before. But I was a teacher for 40 years. So you teach and then you reteach until it sinks in. So the remediation at the Princess Littleton intersection should be considered a matter of urgency. As I see it, the pandemic presented one positive aspect. The traffic was greatly reduced in this town. But that was then, and we are now about to experience a new dynamic. Traffic will be adversely affected by the tsunami of housing development in our town. It will alter the landscape and ultimately affect the safety and the lives of many people. I know that you have no control over that, and that the affordable housing has been adjudicated in the courts. But we have to live with the consequences. And I am concerned about Littleton and Princess. The new housing is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it will provide better accommodation and affordability to some people. Conversely, it will exacerbate traffic conditions. Take heed of these numbers.
The MCV Cherry Hill Road site will have 485 new units. GlaxoSmithKline, 408. By the way, I got my figures from, I forgot her first name, Mrs. London, the lawyer for the town. Matt Cali, 410. Lanadex, 600. Stansbury, 440. Now, using my fingers and my toes, I think that comes to over 2,000 units. This doesn't factor in the traffic that would be created by the housing amenities, such as the shopping plazas where people would be traveling. Without fear of contradiction, residents of each new unit will add at least one car to the road. And I have yet to hear anyone traveling by drone. These additional cars will greatly add to the traffic on Littleton Road, causing delays, inconvenience, and risk to life and limb. I've been around since the Stone Age, and I bear witness to the grinding, slow wheels of governmental bureaucracy. I just lived with it for 4 years. Please be proactive. Do not kick this can down the road. Consider the urgency of this matter. Your decision will impact the lives, men, women, and the children who ride on a bus each day exiting Princess Street onto Littleton. Please find the resources and make a decision that's positive, reasonable, and compassionate. The road to life is paved with flat squirrels who could not make a reasonable decision. Please don't be a flat squirrel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Good evening, everyone. Ann Grassi, 10 Noble Street. I got a sign here, but anyway, I'm just here for one issue, which is the Princess 202 issue. I live on Noble Street, so I'm relieved to hear that you're not going to make Princess a one-way, because that would actually direct all the traffic right to the corner where I live, to Noble Street. It's not a big street. There's only 4 houses on Noble Street. So that I'm very happy about. But I do think the line of sight needs to be addressed at some time in the future. And I'm happy that the mayor has indicated that you're going to be, possibly be able to do something about it, in the future when and if. I know eventually you'll find the money to do it. So I think that that's the best answer for the situation there. And what Warren said is really accurate. Our neighborhood, if you listen to all the locations where the new apartments were going to be, or the housing units, they're surrounding my neighborhood. And I can tell you it's hard enough to get out of Noble Street right now, so I can't even imagine what it's going to be like when all of these other cars are on the road. I mean, there are times when people are backed up past Noble Street in front of Serbo's. Just during regular traffic hours, especially in the morning and in the evenings coming home. It can be really disastrous trying to get in and out, even from Noble Street where you've got a good line of sight. But I want to thank you for looking into it, and I thank you for your consideration, and your willingness to move forward when you have the ability to do so. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Use mine.
Nathan Shapiro, 5 Princess Street. I'm here about the Princess Street and 202 issue. I've been working with Warren for a number of years now and complaining about the same intersection. As a matter of fact, just yesterday, I was almost hit by a car coming out of Princess Street, making a left. A car came across around the corner at least 45 miles an hour and almost T-boned me, and I had to pull out very quickly. So this is much harder in the winter when there's ice across the street. It just happens to be that the drainage crosses the street, so you get some water, crosses the street, you get a freeze at night, now you got ice right across the street, so you're trying to pull out. Warren mentioned school buses that come out of the street. My daughter's been going to school here for her entire life, 18 years. She's got the same problem. She just got her license last year. I tell her to go around the block because I'm afraid for her to go out that intersection. My wife goes around the block.
That's not right. I did speak to Engineer Lisa about some solutions. He was not aware, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't, about what the county did a number of years ago with the restriping of the intersection. That actually causes the traffic to come closer to our street. That's one issue. Speed is another issue coming around from the intersection. So I just asked for maybe the police put out one of those radar signs that tell people how fast they're going. There are things that you can do right now that doesn't cost you any money or very little money, and then you can find the money later for doing construction. Okay, so please take some action now. It's been a number of years. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing no one come forward, I'll entertain a motion to close.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Karifi, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella.
Yes.
Mr. Neglia.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Floor is closed.
Okay, ordinances.
Ordinance 2022-07, an ordinance amending Chapter 405, Vehicles and Traffic, Section 15, Parking Prohibited During Certain Hours on Certain Streets of the Code of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on the first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on March 15th, 2022, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on April 19th, 2022 at 7 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached, at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper or according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Neglia, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella.
Yes.
Mr. Neglia.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ordinance 2022:04, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, accepting public improvements on Waterview Boulevard at the intersection of the Waterview Marketplace driveway. The notice of ordinance 2022:04 was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, on February 22nd, 2022, and introduced at the February 15th, 2022 regular meeting. Motion to accept ordinance 2022:04 be heard in their second and final reading by the title only by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. Neglia. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella.
Yes.
Mr. Neglia.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion to open the public hearing for ordinance 2022:04 by myself.
Seconded.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. Musella. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella.
Yes.
Mr. Neglia.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Floor is open to the public on this ordinance only.
See no one come forward. Motion to close the public hearing for ordinance 2022:04 by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella.
Yes.
Mr. Neglia.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Floor is closed.
Whereas the above ordinance was read in title on second reading and a hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that said ordinance be passed on final reading, and that notice of final passage of said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the resolution above for ordinance 2022:04 by myself.
Second.
So, motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella.
Yes.
Mr. Neglia.
Yes.
And Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022:05, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 4-43.3 entitled Economic Development Advisory Committee, amending the requirements for membership. The notice for ordinance 2022:05 was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, on February 22nd, 2022, and introduced at the February 15th, 2022 regular meeting. Motion to accept ordinance 2022:05 be heard in their second and final reading by title only by myself.
Second.
Motion made by, Mr. Karifi, seconded by Mr. Neglia. Roll call. Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
This time I entertain a motion to open up the public hearing on this ordinance and this ordinance only.
Make a motion.
So motion made by Mr. Karifi, seconded by Mr. Musella. Roll call. Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Floor is open on this ordinance only.
See no one come forward, entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Karifi, seconded by Mr. Musella. Roll call. Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Floor is closed.
Whereas the above ordinance was read in title on second reading and hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that said ordinance be passed on final reading and the notice of final passage of the said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the resolution above for ordinance 2022:05 by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Karifi, seconded by Mr. Neglia. Roll call. Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ordinance 2022:06, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 290-4 and Chapter A 445-37, fees compilation related to Knoll Country Club utility fees. The notice for ordinance 2022:06 was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, on February 2022, and introduced at February 15th, 2022 regular meeting. Motion to accept ordinance 2022:06 be heard in their second and final reading by title only, made by myself, seconded by...
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Musella, seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call. Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion to open the public hearing for ordinance 2022:06.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Musella, seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call. Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes. Floor is open on this ordinance only. Seeing no one?
Seeing no one come forward, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for this ordinance.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Musella, seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call. Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Floor is closed.
Whereas the above ordinance was read in title on second reading and a hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that said ordinance be passed on final reading and that notice of final passage of said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the resolution above for ordinance 2022:06 made by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Musella, seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call. Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Non-consent agenda, Resolution R 2022-054, Jacobs Engineering Group Incorporated for professional engineering services. Motion to approve the resolution above by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Neglia, seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call. Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Resolution 2022-055, authorizing payment plans for delinquent water and sewer payments in accordance with P.L.2021:C.317. Motion to approve the resolution by myself.
Seconded.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. Musella. Roll call. Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Motion passes.
R 2022-056, authorized transfers, budget appropriation reserves. Motion by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Karifi, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
R 2022-057, authorized temporary emergency appropriations pursuant to NJSA 40A:4-1. Motion to approve the resolution above by myself.
Second.
Who seconded that?
I did.
Motion made by Mr. Musella, seconded by Mr. Neglia. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Consent agenda, be it resolved, all items listed with an asterisk are routine and non-controversial by the Township Council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Motion to approve the consent agenda by myself.
Seconded.
Motion made by Mr. Neglia, seconded by Mr. Musella. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Approval of payroll and bills list. CFL 1 Uribe recommends authorization for payment. 1. Authorize payment of the March 18, 2022 regular and miscellaneous payroll estimated at $1,600,000. 2. Payment of bills from voucher list of 3/18/22 through 3/17/22 is $2,181,324.03. Motion to approve by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. Neglia. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani? Ms.
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
That's under,
Can I get a motion to
Yeah,
adjourn?
B.
Unless you guys want to be here.
it's under consent.
Second.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so motion made by Mr. Musella, seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Nick, can I ask you a question?